weekend, then maybe you want to come out to Canton, Mississippi for the 36th annual Mississippi Championship Hot Air Balloon Fest. Say that 10 times really fast, because you'll get to see a wealth of beautiful hot air balloons and their pilots taking hopefully their balloons up into the sky for a beautiful sight. And joining us here on Good Things is a balloon pilot himself, Mr. Ken Johnston. So welcome, Ken.
Well, thank you.
You are the first hot air balloon pilot I have ever met. Do you hear that often?
Well, I appreciate it. I do hear that from time to time, and it's a unique sport or hobby, but it's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun, and I didn't even know where to start to maybe do my homework on having you on the program, other than when I was thinking about the championship Hot Air Balloon Fest. Man, I want to talk to a pilot. Somebody's got to get those balloons in the air. And so I started to learn all kinds of things. Like, you guys have official names and everything else. So what is your official title when it comes to being a balloon pilot?
Well, it's a balloon pilot or a balloonist is the term most folks use. It's pretty much just a pilot classification through the FAA for certification that you have to fly a hot air balloon, which they rated as a lighter than air with airborne heater, is the FAA classification. But it's a process you have to go through. Take a written test and then a check ride to make sure you understand and can obey the rules.
So no one can just go hop in a balloon full of hot air and just push a button and take off? Or is it even a button?
Well, no, it's no button to it at all. And technically, you can't do that legally. That's not to say some folks don't do it, but you have for the proper certification, it's it's some studying involved and learning, and you've got to have X number of hours of flight time with with an instructor, and then you build up your time, and then at the point that your instructor and yourself think you're ready, you take a check ride with a designated examiner.
So, Ken, when you were a little boy looking up at hot air balloons every now and then, did you think, man, that's when I want to be when I grow up?
It never was in my wildest dream to do anything.
So how did you find yourself doing this?
Well, back in '89, we went to Greenwood just to watch a balloon event up there. We went up there and we're going to watch a balloon event and then spend the night up there and then come back the next morning. But as we were watching the balloons the pilots start getting them set up that afternoon, I realized one guy was by himself, and none of the balloon equipment is lightweight by any means. So he was struggling trying to get his equipment together, and I told my wife, I said, that guy needs some help. And she said, well, you don't know anything about balloons. I said, I know, but he can show me. So I eased on over and started helping him, and then she came over with the kids, and he gave the kids, who were small at the time, a task, to pull a rope out, to do something to keep them occupied and involved in it. So we helped him with the balloon glow that night, and then he said, well, I'm going to need some help tomorrow. So we'll be back in the morning. And my wife and I rode the next morning with him, and really the first balloon event we ever went to.
So what was that first experience like, levitating off the ground in just a basket in hot air?
It was the most unique feeling, and I'm, as funny as it sounds, I'm scared of heights. I get on top of this building.
I don't believe you can.
But I finally said, I may never get another chance, so I better go ahead and take this while I can. And it is so different. It's so calm and peaceful. You're moving along with the wind, and it's just a whole different feeling while you're up there. And then you start watching the pilot. What's he doing to maneuver the balloon, and why is he doing that? Do I need to be concerned? And realize they know what they're doing. This isn't the first time to get in one. So, but it was enjoyable. We didn't hit the target that day, but we did have a good flight.
Well, when you say didn't hit the target, that actually goes into what will be happening in Canton this upcoming weekend, barring that the weather permits. And that's why it's called a championship, is the fact that you guys don't necessarily compete or race, but there is a little bit of a friendly competition to it. So walk us through what will be going on in Canton. Which day is it?
Yeah, the actually competition portion of the event is on Friday and Saturday morning. And what the competition advised, we set out at a target. We set out a big nylon X, 20-foot legs on it. And the goal is you have to go out at least 3 miles out from that X that we've placed, and you fly into it, and you have a beanbag with your name and number on it, and you try to throw, or if you're real good, you set that beanbag on top of that X, and then we measure the distance from the center of that X to your beanbag, determine who's first place, second, and so forth. And when I first started, when I got my pilot certificate back in '94, I mean, GPS were just coming out. We didn't have the weather. I mean, if I was even saw the X, I was tickled, and like a lot of other pilots. But this day and time, with the technology we have and the ability of the weather reporting we get, more and more folks are getting closer and getting closer to the X.
So when you know the difference of, other than licking your finger and figuring out like which way the wind is blowing, what does the weather report give you that kind of gives you an edge to navigating it?
Well, we usually go to 4 or 5 different websites and check the weather, and then
You sound like a fisherman.
Was it
the fisherman looking for the wind?
Right, looking for the wind. And surprisingly, not all of them match up. So you got to sort of figure which one you like the best. And also, we call flight services just like a fixed-wing aircraft and get a weather report for them and give them our N number from the aircraft, which is the balloon, and say we're planning on flying, from Canton, Mississippi, in the area for the next couple hours or so. And then we take all that and then say, all right, that sounds pretty good. But usually we will turn loose a couple of helium balloons and watch those with a compass, because that's what it's actually doing at that site you are at that given time. And we say, all right, weather report saying this, the wind's actually doing this, so this is where we need to move to try to get in the best position. And what folks don't realize, you may get at 500 feet and the wind's blowing maybe to the east, and then you get at 500 feet, it may be curling around going to the southeast, and 1,000 feet maybe due south. So the wind is not steady at every altitude there. So that's how we control the direction. We may pop up or we may drop down to get a right turn or left turn to try to steer us into the target and then onto a nice landing field after we pass the target.
So there's no steering wheel within the hot air balloon, really.
The only thing we can control is up and down.
Do you ever have pilot friends that are just way out there, long way away? Maybe they missed it that morning and they're like, "Hey, Larry, we're over here."
That happens, and I've been one of those myself. But that's all part of it. And it's a unique bunch of guys, because we're doing this for fun. And if somebody gets out there stuck in a field, everybody sort of goes over and helps them out. But it's a good group of guys, and yes, there's some skill involved in it, but the peaceful, easy ride that you getting it, it outweighs any of the hardships you may have, landing behind a lock gate or something like that and getting equipment out.
I never thought about having to come down and then land. And if you don't land in, the right spot, it's not like you can just climb over the fence. You have to get your whole balloon up and over wherever you need to go. So if you were that person who got stuck, or not stuck, maybe the wind just took you in a different direction. How do you get back home?
Well, actually, you have a chase crew that's following you into your chase vehicle, whether it's a truck or a van pulling a trailer or whatever. And usually they've been doing this long enough. They've got an idea what the wind currents are doing and where you're headed. And ideally, you want to land in a spot that they can drive right up to you. Because the equipment's heavy. My basket with the burners are about 300 to 400 pounds. The envelope itself is about 250 pounds. So it takes several people. If you got to carry one out of from behind a locked gate, you need some folks to help you. So ideally, you try to land where they can drive up to you, or if you land in a spot and the crew comes up and they say this gate's locked, you may want to consider flying over to the next field where they can drive up to you to make.
Saying all things go right, you make it to the X, Mr. Ken. Will all the balloons sort of be able to land in a big field? Is that sort of the way that it's set up?
Usually it is. We a lot of times require them to fly on a little bit further past the X, so they'll be out of the way of additional balloons coming in.
Well, we still got more coming up next with Ken Johnston. He is a hot air balloonist, coming up with the Championship Hot Air Balloon Fest there in Canton coming up this weekend. We got more with the state. And I would assume, Ken, that there are balloonists from across the state that will be coming into Canton this weekend for the 36th Annual Mississippi Championship Hot Air Balloon Fest. All my air is going out by just naming it, but it is a good time. It happens, obviously. I don't think it got to happen last year thanks to COVID, or did y'all have sort of
we were able on a smaller scale have it, it's just we thought people needed to see something that would make them smile, and we asked the people that came out to stay socially distant or stay in their automobile or whatever. But we did have a gathering on a much smaller scale.
I would think one of the biggest joys out of being a balloonist or a pilot of a hot air balloon, Ken, would be seeing families and children and adults' faces light up when they see these machines, I guess you call them, or aircrafts, do their thing.
It is, and that's what I get a kick out of. When you hit the burner, especially if you're doing a balloon glow in the evening as it gets dark, you hit that burner, everybody's lights light up. The little kids, the adults. You can have someone that's been out of shape. You hit that burner, see several of them light up. They can't help but smile. So that's what's I get, and I get a kick out of if I land in a area close to residential area and there's little kids that have come out with their parents and all. I ask them to come out and hey, help us get this thing packed.
You land in my backyard. I'm coming out. Right.
And it's what's so funny. If in a rural area you fly over somebody's house or near them, and they're out on the porch early in the morning reading the paper, listening to radio, drinking a coffee, and they hear that burner. And that's all they hear, just a burner hit every 3 or 4 seconds. And they look around, they look up, they see you. And they say, am I really seeing what I think I see? And then they turn around. They go inside to wake up the rest of the family. But they need to check one more time to make sure that it is a hot air balloon that they're seeing. And they'll look back out and say, yep, and they'll go back in and bring everybody out.
Oh, that has to be so much fun for just the spectator as well for the pilots. And this festival has to be a good time to be the 36th annual. Usually things that last decades mean that folks enjoy getting out and coming to it. So what all will be going on in Canton? I know you're part of the balloon specific fest, but there is something for the family this weekend from Thursday through, I want to say Sunday. Or Saturday.
Saturday afternoon, yeah. Basically, we're starting off with what we call the launch party or kickoff party on Thursday afternoon up on the square in Canton there. And the band Dr. Czar Amazing Funk Monster, which is a heck of a band that plays all over the South, they'll be playing on the square there beginning at 6 o'clock on Thursday. And our plan is to have weather permitting, a few balloons fly over the area that afternoon. And there'll be a couple of food trucks up there and, just a laid-back, easy-going time up there. And also we've got, from what I understand, 3 people who have won the Mississippi Songwriters Awards this past year will be up there singing their songs as well. So that's on Thursday afternoon. We'll have a competition flight Friday morning, beginning 6:30 time frame at the multipurpose complex. Our goal is to fly into the field there to multipurpose complex, but there again, depending on the wind condition, though, we may fly out of there headed to a target. Friday afternoon, we come down to Ridgeland, to North Park Mall, and do the balloon glow there. They've got a host of bands lined up for that event down there, and they put on a fireworks show there. And then Saturday morning, we'll be back at Canton, and we'll be setting up, doing another competition flight coming into the field, weather permitting. And then Saturday afternoon, we will do Saturday evening. We've got a DJ spinning records for us. There'll be some other activities going on. Then we'll do a balloon glow and then a heck of a fireworks show afterwards there.
You're going to be a busy man, Mr. Ken.
Yes, it keeps you on your toes a little bit, but it's fun. We have a good time doing it.
I would have to think that being a balloon pilot, or balloonist as you call it, flying hot air balloons, it's a tight-knit community of pilots. So where are some of the pilots coming from? Are there other pilots like you across the state that are coming in to fly?
Yes, there's probably 5 or 6 pilots from here in Mississippi that attending this year. We've got a pilot coming into Florida. We've got a couple coming in, actually 3 coming from Alabama, 3 or 4 from Louisiana, and 1 from Missouri. So, and it's a tight-knit group of folks. And what's so funny, most of us, we don't know what the other guy does for a living. We're just out there enjoying what we're doing and having a good, and nothing else work-wise makes a difference,
And I would assume once you get a bird's eye view of really the world, then you start to realize really what's most important.
That's right, yeah.
And that's getting the balloon down. So how do you get the balloon down?
Yeah. Actually, the balloon, as you're flying, the balloon is cooling off, so it wants to start dropping. So if you get up at altitude, let's say 1,000 feet, and you want to fly level, you have to hit that burner every 3 to 4 seconds. And it's about like riding a bicycle. Once you get in sync with it, it just happens, And so you've got to hit the burner, put a little bit more heat in it, fly level. Now, if I want to climb, I may hit that burner more often or let it burn for a little bit longer and generate more heat in the envelope and let it climb. If I want to drop, I'll slow down on those burns and let it start cooling off and start gradually falling. Now, we have what we call a red line in it, which goes up to the top of the balloon, and it will let heat out. We can pull that red line and dump some heat out. If we want to fall a little bit faster than what it wants to, given that temperature, we'll pull that red line and dump some heat and get a faster descent going.
You talk about your burner. Again, these are silly questions from someone who just has no idea. So do you have like a gas tank on there? Like, is there a fuel tank? What's burning?
All right. We've got, we use propanes. Depending on the balloon system, you may have 1, 2, or 3, maybe 4 propane tanks in the system with you. They go through some hoses up to the actual burners, which are above your head there, and they heat up the air. You hit the burner. Burners put out about 15 million BTUs of heat. That is a lot of heat, but you need to warm that air up quickly to either climb, or to get it inflated there. So that's how we fly. So one of my systems has a dual tanks and dual burners. So worst case scenario in an event, I can shut one off and fly the other one. But the equipment, you have to have it inspected by a FAA certified examiner or repair station every year or every 100 hours of flight time. So they're well maintained. So just as any other aircraft is, because our goal is to be safe and stay up on the regulations and make sure we're doing what we need to do.
Where do you store them? I feel like they come down. It's not going to be like a hangar like you would keep your helicopter or your twin engine or whatever it may be. So where, Mr. Ken, are your balloons?
Well, you can't leave them running in time to a tree, so that just doesn't pan out. So you've got to the envelope itself folds up. You actually we call it stuffing it in the bag. It's a big envelope bag. My larger balloon holds 90,000 cubic feet of air. That's equivalent of 90,000 basketballs. My smaller one holds 54,000 cubic feet of air. But I have my personal setup is I've got 2 different trailers. I keep one in one trailer, one other. So I've got I'm ready to go. It's maybe a couple of things I may move from one trailer to the other, but I keep them in the trailer ready to hook up and go.
When you mentioned, Mr. Ken, folding up your hot air balloon and going back into an envelope, I just envision me trying to put a mattress back into its box that it came out of, or not a mattress, or like a duvet comforter, or maybe your sleeping bag, trying to put it back into whatever it came in. It never goes in the way it came out. So, is it a little bit better system than that?
Well, not really. Not really. Once we land and realize a crew can get to us, we pull that red line, like I mentioned earlier. We dump the heat out, and that envelope will lay down. All right. Then with the next step, you've got to milk the envelope. And basically, you just go down and squeeze it. And that's when you try to get every person available, all the kids from the neighborhood or everybody, and you just squeeze the air out of it because you can't get it back in that envelope if it's got much air in it. And it's just a process of like stuffing a sheet in the pillowcase or something. It's, and that's where the work per se comes, when you load it back up. But that's part of it. You've already had the flight. Everything's good, and you just got to do the grunt work to get it packed back up.
Back up. Well, we're packing back up with Ken Johnston here on Good Things. More questions for this hot air balloon pilot. If you got any, 601-879-4395. I'm going to ask him about mosquito. We're continuing our conversation, though, with hot air balloon pilot or balloonist Ken Johnston. He is going to be part of the 36th annual Mississippi Championship Hot Air Balloon Fest. It is coming up this week from Thursday through Saturday in Canton and the surrounding metro area. We've had several of you ask questions on the C Spire text line for our balloonists because, like me, you're the same. You don't get to talk to them very often, which you probably find that too, Mr. Ken. Okay, someone asked me to ask you about mosquitoes in Greenwood early in the morning. That is a very specific question, Mr. Ken.
Well, obviously that person maybe has crewed or been around balloons before because it's an early morning sport and late afternoon. And yes, you get into an area with high weeds or grass up in the Mississippi Delta, you're going to run into mosquitoes. And that's just part of it. You keep bug spray in your vehicle and coat yourself with bug spray and just put up with it. But the enjoyment you get out of it far outweighs the mosquito issue you have to deal with.
Once you get high enough, though, in altitude, do they kind of leave you alone? Or do they, because them little suckers, you have to reach a point where they just quit breathing, right?
Well, and that's a good question. I have never noticed mosquitoes as I'm flying. Usually it's more on the ground there. But you got to remember, I'm moving with the wind because if I'm flying, if I feel the wind blowing, I'm going to change direction or speed. So I've got to anticipate something different getting ready to happen. And so, the mosquitoes will be doing about the same thing. Yeah, they can go against the wind a little bit, but they're moving along with you up at altitude. But very rarely have I experienced mosquitoes up high. You
mentioned altitude, and someone asked, that was Jeff in Oxford, what is the maximum altitude that you've ever flown your balloon up to? And then do your knees shake at that altitude?
I've flown up to about 8,000 feet, and really it's not much different up there. It's not really as much fun because you're so high. You have more fun or it's more enjoyable, staying with, anywhere from 1,000 feet to 1,800 feet, depending on the area you're flying in, because you can see more of the terrain, you can see the people on the ground, you can see the wildlife. You get up too high, and it's just like flying an airplane. Well, there goes a car, right down there. But you get, within that 1,000 to 2,000 foot range, you can see more of what's you pass by every day and have never noticed
And
before.
People can still recognize you at that height, too.
They can still recognize you, and you'd be surprised because there's no vegetation or anything between you and them to block the sound waves. You can talk to folks, a greater distance if they're on the ground and you're up in the air there.
That would be a very surreal experience. I, too, would have to check to make sure I didn't pour the wrong thing in my coffee cup if I saw you come across my backyard one morning. Bobby in Hazelhurst asked Mr. Ken, if you are up there in your balloon and the wind picks up to 10 or 15 miles an hour and you try to land, do you start to get drug across the ground?
Yes, you will get drug across the ground because you've got to think of this as a sailboat that you can't take the sail down real quick. And that's why we fly so early in the morning, late in the afternoon. Anything, up over 10 miles an hour, it's going to, it's not going to be a a very easy landing, and we land in it all the time. But you just need a larger field because they're not going to come to a complete stop. They're going to hit and bounce a little bit and drag. But you need to plan on that accordingly. And most of us carry GPSs in the balloon with us, so we know how fast we're going. And usually at ground level, it's not blowing as fast as it is as it is at altitude. So you may want to come down in altitude and get to a lower wind and bleed off some of that speed before you land there.
Speaking of equipment, someone asked, does the balloon operator, that'd be you, Mr. Ken, have communication with air traffic control?
We carry radios, aircraft radios with us. We hardly ever really, no need to talk to air traffic control, other than we get in that airspace up high. But we carry our aircraft radio, especially if we're flying around, an airport and we need to talk to them, or if there's other planes, let's say crop duster or small fixed-wing aircraft in the area, we may get on a common channel and say, hey, hot air balloon such and such here. We're in this area. I just want to make sure you see us. And usually they'll see us before we'll see them. Yeah.
Let's talk about your craft. Do you have one or two balloons?
I've got two balloons. Yes.
So how long did it take for you to accumulate two? Like, how do you even is there a market for hot air balloons?
There is a market for hot air balloons. There's several manufacturers in the U.S. here and several overseas. And it's like, I sort of relate it to a bass boat or pontoon boat or ski boat. Usually you don't buy a new one your first one. You pick up a used one anywhere $7,000, $8,000, $9,000. And then if you like it enough, you maybe step on up and buy a brand new one and design the color and the scheme yourself if you want to do that. But there is some used systems out there on the market. My larger balloon holds 90,000 cubic feet, and then the smaller one 54,000. So,
what do they look like when they're blown up?
My larger one is it's light blue with multicolor spear points on it. My smaller one, and it's ideal for the upcoming 4th of July. It's red, white, and blue with stars on the top. So it's people get a kick out of it coming up around the 4th of July.
And if people check out SuperTalk's Twitter or Facebook page, they'll see your picture of your balloon. The 4th of July one up is the one I used to talk about the fact that you were coming on to chat with us here on Good Things. Now, like boats or other sort of aircrafts, do you name your balloons?
Well, yeah, most people will name it, and that was always the big challenge. What do you name your balloon? And we had a balloon naming party at our house one night, and so we had several different names. And then the next morning, somebody called and said, I've got a perfect name. And they said, you need to name your balloon Highly Contagious. And they spelled that Hileigh and then Kentagious. And my wife's name is Lee, Leigh. So that's how they came up with that name for my wife and myself. And it sort of stuck, and it's sort of contagious. If you're going to like it or you're not right off the bat.
I agree, because there's those that's listening to Good Things are like, oh, this is great, but never in a million years would I do that. And there's others like me who's like, ooh, I want to know more. When can I go? There's nobody that's kind of like, I don't know. But back in '89, I think you said,
right,
you took the opportunity to say, hey, I'm never going to get another opportunity, and fast forward 40 years and look
right
where you're at. You mentioned, Mr. Ken, your kids didn't know a childhood without hot air balloons. What a unique experience to grow up with a dad who has a hot air balloon.
Yeah, to them it sort of got old hat because they had done it so much. But their friends got a kick out of spending the weekends at our house because they knew there may be a chance that they get to go ride in the balloon. And and the friendships they made, as we traveled around the Southeast going to different events, and I gave each one of them a task that they were to do and help setting up and taking down the system. So everybody had a task to do. So, it turned out, and I think it helped them in their life skills as far as working with people that they didn't know, because we're usually assigned some crew at these events and first time to meet them. So I think it helped them later on in life.
Do you think they will become their own hot air balloon pilots, or are they just leaving that to Dad?
That's a good question. My son sort of mentioned every now and then he may want to do it, and the 3 grandkids, they get a kick out of it. So it's hard to say. I'm not going to push them one way or the other, but at least they have been associated with it and got to experience it, and the decision is theirs now.
Well, you have definitely given us something to experience differently when it comes to learning about hot air balloons and all that goes into flying one of them suckers. And so now everyone has the opportunity to come out this Friday and Saturday to Canton for the Hot Air Balloon Fest. Where do we go for more information on that, Mr. Ken?
Yeah, you can go to the Canton Tourism website for more information. Also, Good Samaritan here in Jackson is one of the sponsors of the event. They're planning on a bicycle ride and fun walk for the kids on Saturday morning. So that, how often do you get to ride a bicycle or do a fun run and have hot air balloons fly over in the area? So it's a unique experience in itself.
And you can also buy golf balls for $20 to be dropped out of a hot air balloon with a chance to win $5,000. And you can learn more of that on their website at goodsamaritan.org, I do believe, or over at Balloon Fest.
Yeah.
So many cool things happening, Mr. Ken. Thank you so much for your time, but you guys stick with us. We've got more for you coming up.